God is dead. What did Nietzsche really mean? Imagine waking up one morning and something feels different. Not the room, not the light coming through the window. Something underneath things. You were taught what to believe. You were taught how to live. You were taught what was good and what was evil and why any of it mattered. And for a long time, you never questioned it. The rules made sense because something stood behind them. But this morning, that something feels gone. The rules are still there. The rituals are still there. The words people use about right and wrong, about meaning, about purpose, they are all still there. But you no longer feel the ground underneath them. It is a strange kind of loss. Nothing around you has visibly changed. The buildings still stand. The calendars still turn. People still go to work, still get married, still bury their dead with the old words. But something invisible has slipped away. And you cannot quite name what it is. What happens to a person when the source of their meaning disappears? Not the customs, not the language, the foundation itself. This is the question one 19th century philosopher could not stop asking. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche, and the answer he gave still unsettles people today. Nietzsche was not a comfortable thinker. He did not want to make people feel better. He wanted to make them look directly at something most of them preferred to avoid. He questioned morality. He questioned religion. He questioned truth itself, and where human beings had gotten the confidence to believe in any of it so completely. He lived in a Europe that was changing fast. Science was replacing old explanations. History was being studied in new, critical ways. The certainties that had held for centuries were beginning to loosen. Nietzsche watched this happening, and he understood something that most people around him did not yet understand. He wrote a sentence that would outlive him by more than a century. God is dead. 4 decades later, people were still arguing about what it meant. Some thought Nietzsche was celebrating. Some thought he was announcing the end of religion with satisfaction. He was not. Read what comes next in his writing, and the tone changes completely. God remains dead, and we have killed him. This is not a triumphant sentence. This is closer to a warning. Nietzsche was not making a scientific claim. He was not trying to settle the question of whether God exists. That question was not really his subject. His real subject was something much larger. For centuries, European life had rested on a shared foundation. A shared sense of what was true. A shared sense of what was good. A shared story about why anything mattered at all. That foundation had been religious. But slowly, without anyone deciding it all at once, that foundation had begun to crack. Science offered new explanations for the natural world. Historical scholars began studying religious texts the way they studied any other ancient document. Secular ideas spread through universities, through literature, through daily conversation. None of this happened as one dramatic event. It happened gradually, the way a house settles before anyone notices the walls have shifted. And Nietzsche's point was not simply that religion was losing believers. His point was this: if the old foundation disappears, what replaces it? To make this idea vivid, Nietzsche told a story. A parable, really, found in his book The Gay Science. A man runs into a marketplace one bright morning, carrying a lit lantern. In daylight, this is strange enough. Why would anyone need a lantern when the sun is already up? He is searching for something. He begins shouting into the crowd. Where is God? The people in the marketplace do not believe in God either, many of them. But instead of taking his question seriously, they laugh. They mock him. They ask if God is lost or hiding, or has gone on a journey. The man stops. He looks at them, and he tells them something they are not ready to hear. We have killed him. You and I. All of us. He does not mean this as an accusation of murder in any literal sense. He means that the shared belief that once held their world together, that gave weight to their laws, their morals, their sense of right and wrong, has been quietly dismantled. By reason, by science, by centuries of slow intellectual change that no single person caused, but that everyone participated in. The people in the marketplace laugh at him because they do not yet grasp what has happened. They think losing belief in God changes nothing important. Life continues. Bread is still baked. Markets still open. Nothing looks different. But the madman understands something the crowd does not. An event of enormous size has already occurred. It simply has not reached them yet. He says something haunting, that this deed is still traveling toward them, like light from a star that takes years to arrive. The people may not feel the weight of what has happened. Not yet, but they will. So if the old foundation is gone or going, what replaces it? This is the question that matters most. Science can describe how the universe works. It cannot tell you what to live for. Money can buy comfort. It has never been able to answer why comfort should matter. Politics, ideology, success, fame, pleasure, personal freedom, nothing at all. Nietzsche feared that people would tear down the old structure of meaning without building anything strong enough to stand in its place. Not because they were careless, but because most people never noticed the structure was being torn down at all. This fear has a name: nihilism. Nihilism, in simple terms, is the feeling or the belief that life has no inherent meaning, no built-in purpose, no foundation underneath the things people do every day. It is not usually loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It shows up as a low hum underneath an ordinary life. Picture someone who spent their whole life following a set of rules. They believed those rules gave their life direction. Then one day, without any single dramatic moment, they stop believing. But nothing rushes in to replace what they lost. They still wake up. They still go to work. They still eat, sleep, earn, and plan for the future. Life continues exactly as before on the surface. But something underneath it has gone hollow. What happens when you remove the answer, but keep asking the question? This is the exact danger Nietzsche saw coming. Not the collapse of belief itself. The empty space left behind when nothing takes its place. You do not need 19th century Europe to understand this. Look at people today. Someone builds a career for 20 years, and one evening asks themselves why they ever wanted any of it. Someone has money, a house, and comfort, yet feels an ache they cannot explain. Someone spends hours each day scrolling through other people's lives, chasing small moments of approval that never quite satisfy. Someone adjusts their beliefs constantly, shaped entirely by whatever opinion is loudest that week. Someone works hard toward success, but has never once asked what the success is actually for. Someone chases pleasure again and again, and still lies awake feeling nothing has filled them. Someone walked away from the beliefs they were raised with, and never replaced them with anything of their own. Nietzsche was not writing about people from another century. He was describing something that repeats in every generation, wearing different clothes each time. So what does "we have killed him" really mean? It does not mean human beings literally destroyed a deity. It means something about human responsibility. For centuries, people relied on an inherited source of meaning outside themselves. They did not have to build their values. The values were simply given to them, handed down unquestioned. But as reason, science, and historical thinking advanced, that inherited foundation weakened. And crucially, human beings were the ones doing this weakening. Through their own curiosity, through their own honesty, through their own refusal to stop asking questions. This was not something that happened to humanity. It was something humanity did to itself, which is exactly why Nietzsche believed the responsibility for what comes next also belongs to humanity. Here is an important distinction, one Nietzsche cared about deeply. Science is powerful. Science can explain how the stars form, how the body works, how disease spreads, and how it can be treated. But science was never built to answer certain kinds of questions. Why should I live? What should I value? What makes a life meaningful, rather than simply functional? What is worth sacrificing for? What kind of person should I try to become? No microscope answers these questions. No equation resolves them. They belong to a different kind of thinking entirely. Nietzsche was not attacking science. He respected what it could do. He was pointing at the edge of what it could do and asking what stands on the other side of that edge. There is another problem Nietzsche noticed, quieter but just as serious. People kept using the old moral language, long after they stopped believing in what had originally supported it. They still said words like good, evil, sacred, and sin. But if the framework behind those words had weakened, what were the words actually resting on now? If there is no higher authority behind our values, where do those values come from? Why call something good? Why sacrifice for another person? Why value honesty when a lie might serve you better? Why care about anyone outside yourself at all? Nietzsche does not hand you easy answers here. He wants you to sit with the discomfort of the questions themselves. Because avoiding them, he believed, was far more dangerous than facing them. Picture a life that looks complete from the outside. A good job, a comfortable home, enough money, friends who show up when it matters, a phone full of people watching, liking, commenting. Everything society promised would add up to happiness. And yet most nights, alone with the quiet, one question keeps returning. Is this really all there is? Not because anything is technically missing. Everything checks the boxes. But checking the boxes was never the same thing as finding meaning. This is not a story about failure. It is a story about a foundation that was never actually built, only assumed. Nietzsche did not want people to stop here in despair. He believed something could come next. Not from him, from the individual willing to face the emptiness honestly. Instead of quietly inheriting values from tradition, could a person consciously create them? Instead of drifting through inherited answers, could someone take responsibility for shaping their own? Nietzsche called this kind of person one who overcomes, not by dominating others, by confronting the collapse of the old foundation and refusing to remain frozen by it. He spoke of becoming who you are, of self-overcoming, of the difficult, ongoing work of building meaning, rather than simply receiving it. This is demanding. It offers no comfort, no easy formula, no promise that the work will feel good. It only offers the alternative to emptiness. This connects to one of Nietzsche's deepest ideas, the will to power. Not power over other people. Power as a kind of inner force, the drive to grow, to create, to shape one's own existence rather than simply endure it. After the old foundation weakens, Nietzsche believed human beings face a choice. Remain passive, drifting through inherited habits that no longer carry real conviction. Or become active, taking part in shaping the values by which they live. This is not a motivational slogan. It is a demand, and a heavy one. Creating meaning is far harder than receiving it. Bring this into the present moment. What actually gives people meaning today? Careers, relationships, wealth, political identity, religious belief, social media validation, entertainment, family, art, personal freedom. Some of these things genuinely nourish people. Others simply distract them from a question they would rather not face. How do you know the difference? Perhaps by asking what remains when the applause stops. What remains when the achievement is old news? What remains in the silence after the phone is put down? It would be a mistake to think Nietzsche was simply attacking religion. He was not proving that God does not exist. He never claimed religious belief was worthless or that people who hold it are foolish. He was not arguing that atheism is correct either. Nietzsche was diagnosing something much larger than any single belief system. A civilization slowly losing its shared foundation and not yet knowing what would take its place. His real question was this: if the old religious authority no longer holds the weight it once held for many people, what will humanity build instead? That question remains unresolved. It remains unresolved for you too. So consider this honestly for a moment. If you removed everything you inherited, everything your parents taught you, everything your culture assumed, everything your religion or the absence of one shaped in you, everything your career and your status have quietly convinced you matters, what would actually remain? What would you still believe if no one around you was asking you to believe it? What would you still choose to live for? What at the deepest level would make your life feel worth living to you and not simply worth continuing? There is no need to answer quickly. Nietzsche never expected anyone to answer quickly. He only insisted that the question be asked honestly. Return one last time to the marketplace. The man with the lantern, searching in broad daylight for something the crowd insisted was already gone. They laughed at him, not out of cruelty, but out of misunderstanding. They thought nothing important had actually happened. Perhaps the real tragedy was not that they refused to believe him. Perhaps the tragedy was that they did not yet understand the size of what his words meant. The old world was shifting beneath their feet, and they had not yet decided, or even realized they needed to decide, what would take its place. That decision was left to the ones who came after. It was left eventually to us. Perhaps the question was never really, is God dead? Perhaps the deeper question, the one that follows you long after this documentary ends, is simpler and harder at the same time. If the old meaning disappears, what will you live for? If this left you with more questions than answers, that was the intention. If you found this exploration valuable, consider staying with us here at Aion Sophia. Subscribing helps this kind of work continue. And if you have a moment, leave a comment below. Tell us honestly, what gives your life meaning? Some questions are not meant to be answered quickly. They are meant to be carried.